In this movie, we conclude applying our color and background color to our document, as well as setting up some of our logical structure. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back into my HTML because I want to add in a news division, because I want to add in a division for the news, the tutorials, and the footer, and of course set up styles associated with each one of those items. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back into my HTML and just scroll on down here to the news section. And right above my H2, I'll set up my div ID equal to news. And then close that div out. Immediately following that, I'll add in another div with an ID attribute of tutorials. And then I'll scroll on down to the bottom here to the end of the tutorial section, and I'll close that. And then lastly, I'll add in a div with an ID of footer for my copyright information. And then I'll add in my closing div for the footer. And I'll go ahead and save my HTML and then jump over to my CSS, where I'm going to set up some rules for the news header, the tutorial section in general, the tutorial header, and the footer. So here I'm going to target inside of the news section all H2s, which at this point is just a singular occurrence, and I'm going to set up my color again as being white. Now, something you might have noticed with a lot of these properties is that they all have the same value, and in fact they are pretty much the same. So if you look right now, we have a bunch of rules that have the same declaration of color white. Now, why in the world am I repeating work like this? Well, primarily the reason why I'm doing this is because we want to continue to think about our HTML tags as being objects. So by continuing to group our declarations together that are appropriate for a specific HTML element, we will continue to think about them as objects. Now, once we're familiar with this idea of objects and related styles, we can then move into the idea of things being more modular. In fact, when we get to the end of this course, we will take a look at our comprehensive main.css file and then split it up into appropriate sections so that then we can consolidate our rules and possibly leverage modularity by taking each one of those sections and turning it into a separate CSS page to be imported. But for now, we're just going to be listing out the color and background together for all of the different items. So here I've gone ahead and added in the background color for news, making it black. The next thing I want to do is add in a rule for the tutorials and declare the background color to be that blue-gray color that we've seen before that got pulled from that graphic, which we will end up seeing in an upcoming movie. And I'll follow that up with a rule for our H2. And again, its color is going to be white. Now, I am using these different methods of writing our RGB colors so that you can get a good feel as to how to do this. Of course, they're all going to result in the same effect. It's just a matter of what you prefer. And then I'll set up my background color for that. And I'll go ahead and set that up to be black. And then lastly, we want to set up a rule for our footer, which will have the color being white and the background color being black. And there we go. I'll go ahead and save my CSS. go back to my browser and I'll refresh and then scroll down and I'll see that we have our news section being affected with the header, then our tutorials header being affected, and then the tutorials background being affected, and then lastly our footer being affected. So as you can see, so far we have some pretty nice color being added in here, which has really spiced some things up and made our document a little bit more lively. And of course, as we move throughout the rest of this course, we'll be adding in other elements that will further enhance our document. So that concludes this movie on applying color.